All right. Um, Mr. Weiner, were you able to talk to the petitioner on your case in the breakout room?
I tried, Your Honor. Yeah, but this is a case that we think that she has the wrong person. And so I explained that to her. And so and she says, well, she's just ready to go forward. So
We've got a case today with Judge Dude. This one is interesting. We have to figure out if this is a case of mistaken identity or one of the most stealth stalking jobs of all time. Maybe even some harassment thrown in there. We'll find out more as we go along. So, welcome to the case of, is it stalking or paranoia?
All right. Ms. Weaver, the person that you have filed against, you believe them to be a DeKalb County resident. Is that correct?
Yes, Judge.
All right. And what is the, how do you know? Well, let me start with how long have you known of this person or their identity?
I don't actually know the person, but I've seen the person. We lived in the same apartment complex. So I've seen the person around the same apartment complex that I lived in over the past year.
Okay. So neighbors, even if not immediate neighbors.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And you've attached your petition along with kind of a synopsis of some things that got your attention. And this is a one-page document. Is that correct? That's all that I'm looking for?
Yes, sir. Everything that's in the narrative were items that I was able to provide a video recording or actual photographs. There's other occurrences, but these are occurrences that I have evidence, meaning photos or video.
Okay, so everything that's referenced in this PDF appears to take, well, no, it does reference other dates in there. So you referenced something on January 30th of this year.
Correct.
So tell me what happened on the 30th.
Yes. So there were two incidents on the 30th. The first incident happened during the afternoon around 1:02 p.m. I went out to walk my dog where the building that I lived in is right beside the dog park. I don't typically go to the dog park. When I went out, there was no one at the dog park. And as I circled back around to head back to my apartment, Miss Mooney was at the dog park with her dog. Previously, that's what was happening, meaning when I would go out in the afternoons to walk my dog, no one would be at the dog park, including Miss Mooney. And then when I would return back to circle back around, she would appear. And I don't walk my dog on the same days or at the same time. And you'll see in the photographs, and if you watch the video, her car is parked right beside my car. So that was the incident on the 30th at 1:02 p.m. Later that day, on the same day around 8:14 p.m., and the times are the times that are stamped with my cell phone in terms of when I took the video recordings and when I took the photograph. I left my apartment. You'll see when you watch the video in the first 2 minutes, individuals were at the dog park, including Miss Mooney. You'll see also in the video that her car is parked right beside my car again. Around the 2-minute and 51-minute mark, as stated in my petition, I started to go down the hill to walk my dog the same path that I typically walk it. You'll see that other people started to disperse from the dog park. You'll see that in the video. And then later in the video, like as I stated in my petition, around the 10-minute and some second minute mark, you'll see that no one is at the dog park again, like because they've already left, but you'll see that Miss Mooney appears to have been sitting in her car since around the 2-minute and 51-minute mark. So it seemed a little premeditated. And then you'll see as I continue to walk my dog, the same path as you'll see in the pictures where I walk behind my car, which is the silver SUV, and Miss Mooney's car, which is the white Honda that when I got behind the car that she proceeded to back out. Um, so that is the two incidents that happened on the 30th, in which I had recordings and I had photographs. And then on the 7th, as I also stated in my petition, there was a similar incident.
Okay, so let's back up. What did
Mhm.
she say to you on the 30th?
She didn't say anything to me.
Okay. Uh, do you know where were you parked in relation to the dog park?
I'm always parked in front of the dog park. There's only one parking spot, space in front of the dog park. I park in the same spot. I've been parking there for years.
Well, you said she was parked next to you, so it sounds like there are multiple spots in front of the dog park.
Yes, there are several spots. There's actually 2 rows. There's only one parking spot, space in front of the dog park. There's a front and a back row. I typically park in the row closest to the dog park. And then
Okay.
there's also parking on the side.
And I think you said apartment complex. That can mean a lot of things. How big of a development or an entity are we talking?
It's pretty big. There's roughly, I want to say 25 buildings. In
25
each building,
buildings or 25 units?
25 buildings. So I lived in building 21 and there's more buildings after mine. So I believe that there's around 25 buildings, if I'm not mistaken.
But you said there were 2 rows. Are you saying that the 2 rows of parking, that's just 2 rows that are near the dog park?
Yes, those are just the 2 rows near the dog park in terms of
So
where.
if there are 25 plus buildings, somebody might drive to the dog park or park there if they were going to use it, right?
Yes, sir. That is 100% accurate.
Okay. What kind of dog do you have?
I have a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel.
Okay. And those are usually in that, is that like a 20-ish pound kind of
Yes,
range?
it's a toy dog. Mhm.
Okay. Do you know what kind of dog the respondent has?
Yes, it was a black dog. I'm not for sure the breed. I don't know if it was mixed or
Well, let's
pure.
start with a size comparison to your dog. That's what I'm curious about first.
Mhm.
Bigger, smaller, about the same.
It's a bigger dog.
Okay. So you're describing some things that happened January 30th. You said there was something else January 7th that we're going to get into. Had you had any? Let me ask this. When was the last time you ever spoke to the respondent?
I don't believe I've ever spoken to the respondent. I don't know her. As I talked about in my temporary hearing, because I didn't have her information, I had to hire a private investigator.
Okay. So what okay, so you two have never spoken.
Mm-mm.
She
I don't
lives at
know.
the complex, is your understanding.
Yes, based on the information that I got from the private investigator, her address is within the same apartment complex. Yes.
So your belief at this time is that she has a right to be on the premises or around the dog park.
Oh, 100%. She lives there based on the information that the private investigator gave me. Yes.
Okay. So and I know you described the vehicle that she had. About how old do you think her vehicle is? Is it
Based on the information from the private investigator, it was a 2008 white Honda Accord.
okay? So tell me about the interaction January 7th.
So on January the 7th, it was around 7:19 p.m. and that's just based on the photographs that I took from my phone. It's time stamped. I went out to walk my dog, similar to the incident on January the 30th. The respondent was already at the dog park. And when I circled back around, because you'll see in the videos, in the photos on either day, is I take the same thing. As I make a circle, I go behind the first row of the parking spaces. by the dog park. I usually park in the far right-hand spot. You'll see that Miss Mooney is parked in the parking spot right beside me. When I went to circle back around, as I started to walk behind my car, Miss Mooney exited the dog park. So basically, these are the rows of the parking. There's grass, and then there's the dog park, and there's a gate. There's 2 gates that you can come in and out of the dog park. So there's a gate where you can enter and exit the dog park from the actual parking lot. And then there's another gate where you can enter and exit through grass. So as I was circling back around to walk behind my car in Miss Mooney's car to go back to my building, Miss Mooney started to exit the dog park by the gate that's closest to the parking spot. And she stood there and she waited. She looked at me. I continued to walk behind her with my dog on the left side of me, and I walked back to my apartment complex. She just kind of stood there and watched me. She didn't say anything to me. As I previously stated, we've never exchanged verbal communication. So yeah.
Okay, so on the 7th, you were both there.
Mhm.
And so on the 30th, you have these 2 incidents at different, and this was January. The first incident on the 7th, that was around 7:20 p.m. So this would have been nighttime and it would have been dark, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the incidents that you're describing January 30th,
Mhm.
One of those was in the middle of the afternoon, right?
Correct, sir.
Okay. And so, and then the other incident would have been nighttime. Again, it was around 8:14 was what you put in your narrative. Is that correct?
Yes, timestamp by my phone. Yes.
Okay. And so when did you obtain a private investigator?
I obtained a private investigator. So initially, because I felt like
So
the
start with this to help me. Estimated.
no problem. So when I felt like the activity was starting to be escalated, meaning
Okay, first, nope, I don't need an explanation. I need you to
okay.
use your best good faith estimate of when you think you hired a private investigator.
Oh, I hired a private investigator in March, if I'm not mistaken, in March this year.
Okay, what happened between January 30th and March?
I had to leave my apartment complex, and I had
Why is that?
because of the incidents that were going on. I felt like I was being stalked and harassed at my apartment complex by multiple individuals.
Okay,
Including,
what happened during February
um,
as it relates to this woman?
in February, I'm trying to think. I don't. I don't recall. I don't remember. I mean, I would have to go back through my recordings.
So, and then your petitioner, or excuse me, your private investigator, I'm interpreting here, but in the interest of speeding this up, they were able to take the information you gave about the car and the physical description, and I'm guessing that went a long way toward identifying this respondent. Is that correct?
I gave them the information in terms of the car. I
Okay.
didn't provide any photos, just the license plate.
Did you provide a physical description of the woman?
No, he didn't ask me.
Okay, so there's a woman on my screen right now. I have gallery view up, so I see 9
Okay.
screens.
Okay.
But there is a woman who is labeled 21R, who is who appears to be a white female with dark hair and glasses. Is this the woman who you believe you're referencing when you describe the events of January 7th and January 30th?
The woman that I saw multiple times was a white woman. I never saw her with glasses, so I don't know if she had contacts on or not. But I know she was a white woman, and she had maybe blonde hair with dark roots.
All right. So,
And the woman that I have in the videos and in the photographs is the same woman I saw driving the car over a year. So
Okay, so what about what happened on January 7th did you interpret to be intimidating or threatening?
it wasn't necessarily what happened on the 7th, it was what happened on the 30th.
And what about the 30th led you to deem something
What
harassing or
Yeah,
stalking?
was the fact that I felt like it was escalating, meaning when I walked behind the car, it would be one thing if I was walking and the person was backing out, but when I got directly behind the car, they backed out and they had been sitting in the car for multiple minutes, not 5, not 7, but almost 10 minutes. And similar incidents had happened with other individuals at the apartment complex that I lived at previously. That was why I started to record when I would go outside to walk my dog. And I actually had this one recorded.
All right, so and were you able to successfully submit those videos to the court?
Yes, sir. The video recordings of the interaction with Miss Mooney around 8:14 on January the 30th was submitted in, I believe, 7 different videos. I had to break them down.
All right, Madam Clerk,
You would like to see the videos, Judge?
yeah, but starting around that, see, we're not gonna have the same timestamps, so if we can try to find one that would be around that 10-minute mark.
10
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
actually labeled in the evidence. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I labeled
Helpful.
they're like 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, and
Okay.
then 12 to
10 to
13.
12 sounds great. And while that's pulling up, do you have any, has anything been done to alter this video other than breaking it up into segments so that it can be submitted to the court?
No, sir. All I did was just use the software in order to break it down to condense it so that I could send it in as an attachment.
Okay, so this is video that you're filming on a phone, I'm guessing, as you're walking?
Yes, sir.
And do you have like a flashlight or something illuminated, or is this your phone just picks it up as is?
Oh, it's just my phone picking up. I didn't use anything extra.
And what were you wearing this night?
Um,
Anything in terms of like, sometimes I see people that like wear those vests that have flashing lights on them and stuff when they
oh
go
no,
jogging.
sir. No,
Nothing
no,
like that.
sir. I
Okay.
didn't have any flashing, reflecting lights or anything.
I guess that was a weird question to ask if I don't clarify. I'm sorry about that.
No.
Okay, so what am I looking? I'm looking across the field here. And is that the
Yeah.
dog park?
So, yeah. So earlier in the video, you'll see that no one was at the dog park, and you can see that her white car is there beside my silver SUV.
And so that's her white car that's just barely in frame.
Yes.
Okay, you can't see my mouse. I was trying to point at the car, but that doesn't really help. So there's a silver car and then a
And
white
that's
car.
me.
The
Yes.
silver car is you?
Yes, it's the SUV.
Okay, now it doesn't look like her car. I
Yeah,
couldn't tell
you'll
if her
see-
lights were on or not, but okay.
They were on if you go back in.
Okay, the backlights you see, sure.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. That's what was confusing.
Are you trying to hit me?
So yeah, that's why it was disturbing, is because she sat in her car with her lights on.
All right. So Ms. Broom, can you run the video back to the point where the respondent is, or excuse me, the petitioner is approaching?
Are you trying to?
Or just, okay, about 10 seconds before that. Okay, can we pause? Okay, so these are, as you're approaching the vehicle, the lights that you're seeing in the back are backing lights that would indicate the vehicle is already in reverse, correct?
Correct, but the lights were already on earlier in the video.
which would indicate the car is in gear, right?
Correct.
Those backlights. Okay. So, and you said this was a 2008.
That's what
Honda.
the private
That was what
investigator.
was relayed to you by the private investigator.
Yes, sir.
Is that
That's-
approximate age consistent with how the car looks to you? You don't think it's a 2020 or a 2022 or something?
No, it didn't appear to be a newer vehicle.
Okay. And so you made that comment. I will say you're holding your phone in your hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree that that comment is probably, it's not necessarily loud enough for someone inside a car to hear if their windows are up? It didn't sound like you shouted to me. Is that fair?
I mean, I don't, I mean, I can't say if they heard me or not. I just know what I said. I have no idea if, because I think the windows were kind of dark, so I couldn't see if there was a reaction, if they heard me or not. I can't attest to that.
Okay. They didn't communicate anything back. If they heard you, or whether they heard you or not, they did not communicate anything back to you. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And you would agree that you didn't shout or stop to get their attention. It looked like you continue walking as the video goes on. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes. So
Okay.
if you could, yes.
All right. And so this is what led you to believe that this person is has some sort of grievance or vendetta against you. This was the moment, the escalation that you would point to.
Yes, because they sat in the car for a number of minutes with the back lights on. Yes. Tail lights, or however, whatever you would refer to the back lights. Like they sat in the car for a number of minutes. Yes.
Okay.
It seemed a little premeditated in my opinion. In my opinion.
All right. I think that covers the questions that I have. This will be the opportunity for Mr. Weiner to ask some questions if he wishes to. I've sent you a prompt to unmute, counsel. Do you have any questions you wish to ask this witness?
Judge, just a couple, because I don't think there's been a prima facie case made out, but let me just ask her a few of the questions. Ma'am, do you have in front of you the address of that the private investor gave you of who owned the car and where that person lived?
Yes. He told me it was 512 Druid Oaks Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30329, which is inside the same apartment complex that I live at.
So you said that you had problems with other individuals as well in the complex for the same type of behavior?
Correct, sir.
And what was that?
It was a similar incident in November of 2022 and December of 2022, meaning when I would be walking my dog specifically at night, just like you saw in the video, they would, when I would initially come out, they would sit in their cars. And then when I would walk behind the car, because I typically walk the same route, they would start to back out. So it seemed a little premeditated. So that's when I started to record, sir.
Okay. And how many other incidents would you say there were?
There were, I believe, two, maybe three. There was one in November and one in December.
And did you report these to the police?
Yes, sir, I did. I actually tried to go to the police before I filed this TPO, which is why it's a little bit delayed. I tried to go to the police.
Did you call the police on the night of January 30th?
No, I did not call the police on the night of January the 30th, but I had contacted them prior to the 30th.
But on the night of the 30th is where you're alleging that she started moving her car towards you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't feel it was necessary to call the police at that time?
I did not call the police because I was already in contact with the police and they were asking me for additional information, which I provided.
And they were asking you for additional information about the same person in this car or other individuals as well?
All the incidents, and I actually provided them with the same video.
Okay. And so you left the apartment when?
I actually moved out on February the 27th. They let me break my lease early due to me feeling unsafe.
Okay. You say you also have some photographs of my client.
Yes, I submitted them as evidence on the 30th and on the 7th, if I'm not
Since
mistaken.
we have not seen any of those, Judge, is it possible to figure out if she has a photograph of my client to see it's the same person that she is alleging that's here today?
We can see what we'll have to do with that is check every exhibit individually. And so we may be playing a game of slideshow. And if I could interrupt, I had a question I forgot to ask, which was, ma'am, when do you believe the last time was you saw the respondent?
I believe I did see her in February before I left, meaning that I went outside to walk my dog. But I would have to go back through my recordings and videos to give you an exact date.
Okay. So you don't believe you've seen her in March and you don't believe you've seen her in April?
No, I definitely, because I had to relocate temporarily to Tennessee.
All right. Madam Clerk, are we able to see if there are photos in the record?
Judge, I'm going through each one right now to see if I see a photo. And right now I haven't seen one yet, but I'll keep looking.
Thank you.
Judge, and I have just, I'll continue asking a few more questions while she's doing that, if that's okay.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks. Ma'am, so on any of these incidences, the 7th or the 30th or any other time involving my client, was there anything spoken between the two of you?
No, other than what you saw in the video when I asked, "Are you trying to hit me?" That was the only thing that I ever said.
Right, but she never responded to you or said anything to you ever.
No, as I previously stated earlier with the judge, no, there was never a verbal communication other than what you saw in the video.
And so what about her behavior that did you feel was threatening or intimidating at that time?
The video, meaning she sat in her car for a number of minutes. And when I proceeded to walk behind it, meaning the same route that I always take my dog on, she proceeded to back out. And there had been similar incidents of other individuals doing the same thing. I did find it threatening. And that was why I went to the police back in January, because I felt like it was escalating.
And you didn't feel it was necessary to call the police on the 30th?
Well, I had previously called the police and they to come out, and they did not take a police report. So I thought, I'll just keep giving them more evidence. So I had called them out previously.
And as the judge asked you, and you indicated during watching that video, that the car, before you got behind it, its gear was already on to start moving backwards. Is that correct?
Yes, it was on for multiple minutes, but the car never actually backed out until I approached it.
But you saw the parking lights and you saw the gear lights that indicated that it was in a moving position.
What do you mean? I'm sorry. I want to make
So
sure.
when the car was put in reverse,
Okay.
the lights come on in the back.
Mhm.
So you can see when somebody's pulling out.
Yes, but you can see the lights on when you watch the video from the 10 to 12 minute mark before I even got around the corner to go behind her. The lights were already on, which means it was reverse.
But when you walked behind her, her lights were on that indicated that she may be moving. Is that correct?
Yes, but they were on prior to me walking behind it, meaning earlier.
And when you walked by her, you didn't say anything until you were a little farther past, and you just commented, "Were you trying to hit me? Or are you trying to hit me?" Something like that.
Yes, sir. I did because her lights had been on for multiple minutes in gear, and she didn't actually back up until I got behind her, which made it seem like she was waiting.
And she did not respond to you verbally or anything.
I mean, to my acknowledgement, no. The windows were up, and I proceeded to walk away back to my apartment. And you'll see when you watch the 12 to 13 minute mark, she pulled back into the spot and sat there for I don't know how long. I don't know. I
So-
proceeded.
All right, if I can interrupt, Miss Broom says she has 2 pictures, so we're gonna see if we can screen share those.
Okay.
So that's a picture of the vehicle.
Yes, and Miss Mooney in my car beside it to the right.
Okay, was this from the 30th or is this from another time?
It should be dated on the evidence. Like when I sent it, I put dates and timestamps on all of them.
Miss Broom, do you have any of that information?
I can go back and look. Hold on.
And so is the person standing next to the vehicle that I didn't notice at first, is that the person you're referencing?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Now that person appears to have long, at least in the first photo, lighter hair. Is that
Yes, as I stated earlier, I thought it was blonde with maybe dark roots.
okay? And your private investigator told you that, did you tell the investigator about the vehicle or did the investigator tell you
The-
about the vehicle?
I sent the investigator a screenshot of the back of the vehicle with the license plate. And then he came back and gave me the address and the name and the date of birth, which is what I put into the documents for the TPO. I didn't actually send him a picture like I stated earlier. I just sent him a screenshot because I saw the same woman driving the same car over a year period of time. And that's who he came back and told me was the owner of the car and the address.
All right, so looking at your photo, can you see where the trunk would open on this vehicle?
Yes, sir, I believe I can.
Okay, so what it looks like to me is that the lights on the back are not, they don't overlap or share space with the trunk. The backing lights are confined to that back panel right above the bumpers on both edges. Is that right?
Are those lights or are those just, I don't know, reflect? I don't know.
Well, the light assembly, I guess, would be the term for that you would get to through the trunk if you had to change a bulb. But there's no part of the light assembly that spills over into the trunk, right?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a car person. I have no idea.
All right, I'm pulling teeth. It looks like what it looks like to me. We can move on. Mr. Weiner, do you have questions about either of the 2 photos?
No, Judge, they're not clear enough for me to determine anything other than it appears to be a younger woman with somewhat blondish hair, but it's not in focus enough for me to tell.
All right, and so you didn't, Ms. Weaver, you didn't provide the investigator with a make or model on the vehicle. You just provided the investigator with the license plate itself. And then that came back to a place in the complex, correct?
Yes, sir. I probably should submit it in evidence because I had to send him, I had to fill out a document and sign it and ask why I was using the information. But I didn't even send him a picture. I just put the license plate number and I said I was going to use it for a stalking TPO. So all I gave him was the license plate number.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can we pull up the video from 10 to 12 again?
One moment, please. It's coming.
And if we could jump back to the part where she is walking up to the car and just try to pause it there. I don't know. We'll see if we get a view of the back as she goes by. So if we can. Not really. Okay, you can just let it roll from there.
Are you trying to hit me?
All right. Thank you. I think that's all I need for that one. All right, Mr. Weiner, any other questions?
Just a couple, Judge. What was the name of the private investigator that you hired for this?
Ms.
Here.
Weaver, you still with us? Your camera has gone dark. I thank all of you for that. Ms. Weaver, we lost your connection. We're glad that you're back. While we were trying to make the best use of our time, I started handling some of the scheduling on number 17, and I apologize, but it took longer than I expected it to. That issue has been resolved. And so we are going to pick up where we left off, which I believe was Mr. Weiner said that he still had a few more questions. And Ms. Weaver, you should have a prompt to unmute, and that'll make sure that we hear you when your answers come through.
Okay.
Ms. Weaver, the last question, right when we lost you, I asked is, what was the name of the private investigator that you hired?
It was called Visions something. I would have to go back through my email and give you the exact name. I'm happy to do that.
And do you remember the investigator's name himself?
No, sir, I do not. I should have put that into evidence, meaning the paperwork that I filled out.
And
I apologize for that.
that's okay. So you said you went to them in March, to the investigator.
Yes, sir.
And so between January 30th and March, why didn't you reach out to the investigator before then?
Because I had tried to go through the police, sir, meaning the private investigator was my last result. I tried to go through the police, and I didn't feel like I was being treated appropriately. And so then I went through the private investigator.
Do you have a case number from the police?
Yes, it was submitted into evidence. And I've also submitted into evidence that that police report is not correct.
Okay. Judge, I think that's all the questions that I have.
All right, Ms. Weaver, I don't remember if I asked this or not, but in case I didn't, did you intend to call any witnesses other than yourself?
No, sir. I don't have any other witnesses.
All right, Mr. Weiner?
Judge, I don't anticipate calling my client. I just have our argument.
Well, here's what I think needs to be said. Ms. Weaver, this is an area of the law that asks for the court to restrict the freedoms and movements and actions of another person. And the way that Georgia handles such requests is maybe not unique, but it's certainly not the way that it is in all other states. And there are questions that we have to answer in every case. The last question, we'll take them in reverse order. The last question is this order necessary or reasonably likely to be effective in reducing future incidents of stalking behavior? The answer to that question is no. And the factual record established today is that you've had no contact of any kind, not even a visual sighting, with this person in the month of April. It's today, the 18th, not in the month of March. And your testimony under oath was maybe in February, but did not provide any details as to what that interaction even was or why it would be construed as threatening in any way. The testimony in the record establishes an incident on January 30th took place where an old vehicle being driven at night made what I will describe as a short movement. It appeared to be 6 feet or less at the time based on where you were. I will say that I have owned cars with manufacturing years of 2007 and 2011. Neither of those cars was equipped with a backup camera. my car that is from 2016 was required to be equipped with a backup camera because that is a safety change that was made to vehicles between the 2 times that I purchased those cars. I would not expect a 2008 vehicle to have a backup camera. It was dark. You indicated that you did not have a light activated as part of your clothing or as part of your camera. And so while her driving in that moment appears to be dangerous, assuming she's the one at the wheel, this is a person that has never spoken to you, and stalking requires contact for no legitimate purpose. And the interactions that are happening, well, one, there are no interactions, there are no words being exchanged. Her presence at these locations is a place that you agree that she lived at the time and that she had a right to be, and how she chooses to conduct herself in a place that she has the right to be is not a matter for court intervention. And so even if, and I will say, in the interest of just being clear, the picture that we looked at, I don't think it's her. But even if it was, even if she changed her hair or she's wearing a wig today or something, even if every single thing that was testified to can be attributed to her and is 100% true, legally, it does not serve as a factual basis for a stalking protective order in the state of Georgia. And so I am required by law to enter a dismissal in this matter. And what I will say is that regardless of what interactions you two have had or not had, or how often you've been in each other's presence, the mere fact that Ms. Mooney is here today, and I'm sure with advice of counsel, if it were needed to hammer this home, which I don't think it is, I'm sure that she would have no interest in any further interaction or confrontation of any kind, because I don't think, look, we stopped doing weddings when COVID happened. And so now the only people that come to see me are people that don't want to see me. That's just what this job is. And nobody wants to look at this face for 3 more hours. And so she has not contacted you for at least March and April, and possibly longer than that, or even been in your presence. There has never been a verbal exchange. There's never been a threat. There's never been anything that would indicate, that there was an ongoing pattern of behavior specifically from her directed toward you, though I certainly don't diminish what other problems you indicate you had at that complex that led to your departure. But by law, these orders are 1-to-1, so to speak. I have to take actions from one person toward another person, and that is my focus. And even when there is a pattern, the pattern is about this particular person and not what you experienced in that complex as a whole. And the pattern of what's established in the evidence that was submitted and testified to today is that she has not committed acts of stalking sufficient for an order to issue. And so I'm going to place the parties back in the waiting room, and this matter will be concluded. A dismissal will be entered into the record reflecting the results of today's hearing, and that should be on file by the end of the week. And all parties have my thanks for